Have you ever pondered the price of perpetual happiness? Does the ceaseless pursuit of joy lead us to a brighter tomorrow, or does it cast a shadow over the essence of our humanity? Today, we delve into this intriguing conundrum. Imagine a world where every moment brims with bliss, where sadness and discomfort are but distant memories. Sounds ideal, doesn't it? But here's the catch. The pursuit of constant happiness can have its drawbacks. On one hand, the chase for ceaseless cheerfulness fuels motivation. It inspires us to strive for better, pushing boundaries and breaking barriers. It's the nudge that keeps us moving, the wind beneath our wings, the spark that ignites our ambition. Furthermore, happiness is known to be a great health booster. It strengthens the immune system, reduces the risk of chronic diseases, and even lengthens our lifespan. No wonder we're all so hooked on the idea. However, there's a flip side. The relentless pursuit of happiness can lead us down a dangerous path. It can blur the line between genuine joy and superficial pleasure. The pursuit of happiness can turn into an obsession, a never-ending chase that can leave us feeling empty and unsatisfied. When happiness becomes a fixation, we may resort to harmful habits and substances just to keep that happy feeling alive. The staggering figures on substance abuse depict a grim reality. Every year, US citizens spend over $150 billion on illicit substances like cocaine, heroin, marijuana, and methamphetamine. In 2022 alone, Americans spent $30 billion on marijuana, a sum that eclipses their expenditure on chocolate by $10 billion. While these substances may provide a temporary high, they often leave users disconnected from reality, transforming them into mindless zombies in the pursuit of a fleeting high. Moreover, the constant pursuit of happiness can make us immune to the very feeling we seek. It's like listening to your favorite song on repeat. After a while, it loses its charm. Similarly, if we're happy all the time, we may no longer appreciate the feeling, and it may lose its value.
Ever wondered how dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter, is produced in our brain? The process is as intricate as it is fascinating. Despite its complexity, we can break it down into 7 key steps: synthesis, storage, release, binding, reuptake, degradation, and regulation. In the first step, synthesis, dopamine is created from the amino acid tyrosine. This transformation is facilitated by an enzyme known as tyrosine hydroxylase, which converts tyrosine to L-DOPA, a direct precursor to dopamine. Once synthesized, dopamine doesn't just float around aimlessly. It's neatly stored away in vesicles within the presynaptic terminals of neurons. Think of these vesicles as miniature storage units, holding the dopamine until it's time for it to be released. And when is that time? When a neuron is activated, an action potential zips down the neuron to the presynaptic terminal, triggering the release of dopamine from the vesicles. The dopamine then spills into the synaptic cleft, a small gap between neurons. After it's released, dopamine doesn't linger in the synaptic cleft. Instead, it binds to dopamine receptors on the postsynaptic neuron. There are several types of these receptors, each responding differently when activated by dopamine. But what happens to the dopamine after it has transmitted its signal? It doesn't simply disappear. Instead, it's taken back up into the presynaptic neuron in a process known as reuptake. The dopamine transporter protein on the presynaptic neuron membrane facilitates this. However, not all dopamine gets reuptaken. Some of it is broken down by enzymes such as monoamine oxidase and catechol-0 methyltransferase, either in the synaptic cleft or within the presynaptic neuron itself. This is what we call the degradation process. Finally, the production and release of dopamine is not a free-for-all. It's tightly regulated by various factors, including other neurotransmitters, hormones, and feedback mechanisms within the brain. This ensures a proper balance and function of dopamine. So, in a nutshell, dopamine production in the brain is a multi-step process. It begins with the synthesis from tyrosine, includes storage in vesicles, release into the synaptic cleft, binding to receptors, reuptake into presynaptic neurons, degradation by enzymes, and ends with regulation to ensure proper neurotransmission and brain function. A complex dance of biochemistry, all to keep our brains functioning smoothly.
First, let's delve into the three main components that influence our happiness levels. Research suggests that these are genetic factors, life circumstances, and intentional activities. Interestingly, despite the highs and lows of life, humans tend to return to a baseline level of happiness. This is due to a phenomenon known as hedonic adaptation, where we adjust to changes in our lives, whether positive or negative, and eventually return to our previous level of happiness. Now let's turn our attention to dopamine, a neurotransmitter that plays a crucial role in the experience of happiness and pleasure. But before we get carried away with the notion of dopamine being the happiness chemical, it's essential to understand that an excess of dopamine or a dysregulated dopamine system can lead to negative consequences. Firstly, excessive dopamine release can lead to addictive behaviors. This can occur when the brain is repeatedly exposed to certain rewarding stimuli, such as drugs, gambling, or social media, and seeks more of these substances or activities to maintain the heightened dopamine levels. Secondly, high levels of dopamine can impair impulse control, leading to impulsive decision-making and risky behaviors. This can often lead to a cascade of negative outcomes in various areas of life. Thirdly, dysregulation of the dopamine system has been linked to various psychiatric disorders, such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Lastly, in some cases, elevated dopamine levels can contribute to feelings of anxiety, paranoia, or even hallucinations. It's crucial to remember that dopamine is just one of many neurotransmitters involved in the complex interplay of brain chemistry and emotions. So, while dopamine does play a significant role in our experience of happiness and pleasure, maintaining a balanced dopamine system is essential for overall mental well-being. This balance can be achieved through healthy lifestyle choices, effective stress management, and seeking professional help when needed. In summary, our happiness is influenced by a combination of genetic factors, life circumstances, and intentional activities. However, it's also significantly impacted by our brain chemistry, particularly dopamine levels. While dopamine does contribute to feelings of pleasure and reward, an excess or dysregulation of this neurotransmitter can have negative consequences. Therefore, maintaining a balanced dopamine system is a crucial aspect of our mental well-being. Remember, happiness is not just about experiencing joy, but also about achieving a state of balance and contentment in our lives.